8:33 exactly. Welcome to News and Views on Salam Media. And next we're going to be talking to the spokesperson of the Eskom National Crisis Committee. And that is you, former student leader and community activist, Kamvelihle Goba. A very good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning to your viewers and good morning to you, and thank you for having us today.
And thank you indeed for forming this crisis committee. Long overdue, and I do hope and pray that you get all of the support, not only locally but nationally as well. Let's talk about the Eskom shutdown, at load shedding, at Woodmead, at Keep the Lights On. What's this all about?
So thank you again for the well wishes, and thank you for the support. We're hoping to garner as much support as possible. So last year, given the stages that were, on and off electricity blackouts, we came together as community activists and started what we call the Eskom National Crisis Committee, because we believed that the leadership at Eskom at that time, the board that was there, including the CEO, Andre Derrit, and the rest, were incompetent. But also not only that, the response of the government was too complacent to the matter. So we came together and we started our first course of action. We went to Eskom last year in July, and where we wrote a memorandum. Part of our memorandum, we had just two demands: that the then CEO should resign and that load shedding should go. And one of our demands then was acceded in that Andre Derrit did eventually collectively, through his wisdom, resign because he was doing a job which was less satisfactory. But what we are seeing is that the blackout and the continued load shedding has even escalated to a point that has never been before. In fact, we are in the worst blackout crisis since 1994. So we are continuing, and this year's action is different in that today we are having an occupation. It's not a protest where people are going to just vent and go home. It's going to be an occupation until that the bodies that are forever subjected to darkness can be seen by the staff that is at Eskom each and every day when they come to work, that these are the people. They can't go back to their townships because their townships are dark. When they go back to their townships, they're susceptible to violence, they're susceptible, their children, when they send them to go buy stuff, they are susceptible to rape and all other forms of social ills. Also, from a point of view where mostly township dwellers and village dwellers, electricity now, we have found out that it can even go up to 13 hours. So if you're a normal villager staying in Kwatendane, the electricity can leave from 8 o'clock and it comes back around 6. So you have a whole day of not being productive on anything. And energy is not just electricity to do work for purposes of cooking or doing utensils, but it's also, light. We're people of God. We don't want to do things in the darkness. We want sunlight. We want to have light so that everything that we do can be done in accordance. So we started this initiative and action as a form of raising consciousness and awareness to say that we can't be complacent in our own misery as South Africans, and it cuts across political parties. It's not political party orientated because we believe that political parties, their mandate is to serve the public, but they're all in parliament sleeping and earning fed checks where the public that they're supposed to be serving is undergoing this huge form of inconvenience in the form of continued blackout.
You will realize, obviously, and appreciate the fact that the reason why we're having all of these rolling blackouts and the country being on its knees is simply because of large-scale corruption, that the majority of those ministers have all got shares in coal mines and other power utilities, that it suits them and serves them well to have this situation playing out in the country. I just spoke with David van Wyk, a lead researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation, a little while ago, my first interview for the morning. He has indicated that the best of coal When the coal is mined in South Africa, the A grade coal is sold to the highest bidder, and that then goes overseas. That's one of the reasons why we're having these blackouts, because we are being sold, or Eskom buys the lower grade coal or the sabotage coal. And of course, this all ties directly in with the corrupt practices of our corrupt politicians. What sort of ultimatum is your organization going to be giving Eskom? Is going to then possibly even approach Ramaphosa, because he's sitting on his hands, and so are the rest of the ministers. They don't suffer the same fate you and I do. They don't go home to rolling blackouts. Their businesses haven't closed down because it can't be sustained with the type of power that they're receiving, intermittent only. So where do we move on from here? We need our voices to be extremely strong. How do we hold these people accountable? Because I think in their minds we are a joke. We as ordinary South Africans are a joke, and we don't matter.
Absolutely, my sister. We share the sentiments, and you can imagine someone who is far as Lephalale, or who is far as Ulundi in KZN, how they are grappling with this matter. The most potent form of holding the executive accountable, firstly, is that South Africans, irrespective of their social background, irrespective of their race, creed, irrespective of their class standing, they need to come together now more than anything, because what has happened is that the best of our coal, through this just energy transition that has been agreed on in World Economic Forums, we're not even there. Europe is telling us to stop using coal, but they've been using coal to industrialize their economies all these years. In fact, even in Germany, they're building up coal backup power stations. In England, they're building coal-fired power stations because during winter, these solar and renewable forms that they are suggesting for us, they've seen that they don't fit the national capacity of the people that are in the country. So, renewable energy in the form of solar and wind, we're not opposed to energy mix, but the energy mix can come with terms where South African livelihood, South African families, and South African economy is subjugated in the benefit of European economies, which by and large Europe has had an historical benefit of when it comes to natural resources in Africa. They've been tampering with our gold, they've been tampering with our diamonds. Now they are stealing our coal under the guise of just energy transition. That's why we are saying that part and parcel of what has been happening is that there's been a lot of European miseducation of the public. And the miseducation of the public is what this protest is trying to highlight, to say that people and their voices need to come together now and be amplified. And the amplification, this is just the start. Of course, what we're trying to get to is a build-up of a national program, which is going to be bigger than this, because the politicians can't have a situation whereby they just things are normal. And sometimes not sitting and not doing anything, we are allowing people to continue getting away with things that they're supposed to be getting away with. It's them that pass on these deals with these coal mines. It's them that pass on these deals with Glencore. Glencore has yet to even be tried when we have heard that it has committed heinous crimes in terms of bribing people and taking the best coal that we have in our land. Not only South Africa, but you go to also Zambia, you go to also DRC. So what we have here is a crisis, number one, of leadership with regards to the energy question. Because even with the renewable energy, nuclear is the cleanest form of renewable energy, but we have not been seeing any discourse around that. The only discourse we've been having is one discourse which is one-sided, that coal is old, coal must be phased out, but there's no plan to phase out coal, only to find out that this coal is taken and it's been taken to Manchester and Birmingham and London. So we are saying that as the Eskom National Crisis Committee, we are firstly privatized to Eskom, because what they want to do, they want us to have a situation whereby we are all going to give up on the NTT. Then people are going to say 2 or 3 rich men must sell private electricity for a majority. And we know the majority in South Africa were the most unequal society. When Eskom was founded by Henry van der Bilt, it was to provide electricity for free without profit. So Eskom is not a profit-making entity. Its sole jurisdiction is not to make profit. Its sole jurisdiction is to keep the lights on. And so we don't believe that there's truth in this just energy transition. We believe that it's a purposefully brought up, demonized and derailed to favor a certain economic structure, and it does not favor the poor who are majority in this country. It doesn't favor the taxpayers, and it doesn't favor even the middle class who are now starting to feel the pinch. But one thing that we must also add, my sister, is that there is a tendency in South Africa, whenever the poor and the working class are taking protest action, we are always looked at as voter cows or protest cows. We are always being yanked and judged from a silence. People are comfortable in their Twitters, in their couches, from their Wi-Fi tweeting because they can afford generators, because they can afford solar, because they can afford. But those things, when there's no sunlight, when there's no wind, all of those things, they don't work. They all rely on the very same grid that uses 80% of our coal. And coal is God-given. Here it's found in Mpumalanga. It's given by God. The best of the coal is found in this country. So we don't buy into this idea. We know it's another colonial tactic to steal our resources. We feel that this load shedding is deliberate. It is actually grand theft looting, which is based on not doing anything but to render the population and the economy of this country to a deathbed. Actually,
Okay, let me come in here. Let me come in here and also say that the colonialist that is raping this country is done so on the permission of our corrupt politicians and government, unfortunately. So let's not rule that out. If we didn't have such corruptible people in top positions, this wouldn't have been happening. Going forward, let's just bear that, let's keep that top of mind, okay? Because we have a handful of rich black politicians that are in collusion with the colonialists, and the rest of us are all poor and we are struggling. Going forward then, what are you expecting out of today? Is it just another situation of handing over a memorandum and then forgetting about it? You've called for the resignation of Andre de Ruyter. He is stepping down. We're going to have the similar situation playing over and over and over again. They'll have CEOs put in place all of the time. They're just not going to be able to deliver because the system is broken. The system is absolutely broken. No CEO is going to be able to fix the situation unless we don't get rid of the corrupt government and corrupt politicians. How do you guys and the rest of South Africa intend to move forward to make these people accountable and to make these people supply the energy that South Africa needs?
So corruption in South Africa, historically, when you speak of it, it has a black face. And it's one thing that we must quickly correct, because when we speak of Eskom corruption, we speak of evergreen contracts. There are people who've been supplying coal at Eskom for contracts of lasting over 50 years. We don't know their faces. There are people who are supplying independent power producers. There are media embargoes on those same suppliers. There are people who are supplying diesel. We are told that diesel is being banned. I mean, there was a story now that they've banned over 50 liters in 1 month, costing the country over trillions of rand. But we don't know who those faceless suppliers are. So obviously we agree. Just like in apartheid, the colonizer was not going to be strong if it did not have collaborators within our own country.
Absolutely.
So we are of the view, firstly, that to gravitate to a point of getting to the neck of this corruption, because we don't want to say corruption. We want to know who supplies, who are these IPP companies that are supplying, who are these companies, who are their owners. On top of that, who has been supplying coal that has been burning for all these years and people are faceless and all of that. On top of that, the maintenance contract, who is supplying maintenance? So that when the government says they have also established a committee to look into the crisis at Eskom, we also want to argue that as part of the public and as part of the activists that are riling this call, we should also have a public oversight view in the discussions and also the processes, because Eskom does not belong to them. Eskom belongs to the people of South Africa. We can ask them. We must demand, and we must take what we need to take from them, because the politicians are only as strong as the people who are giving them money. And we know that historically, even these rich black people, they've been made rich elsewhere. And the people that have been making them rich, that have never forfeited their ill-gotten gain in the past, that are still continuing to dominate, because it's them that have the land to produce wind farms, it's them that have the land to produce solar farms, it's them that have the machinery and the money and the techno-savvy know-how to invest in these large groundbreaking equipment. So we need to have a twofold approach. We need to say, yes, the government is corrupt and we must rid it of all those elements. But we must also be conscious of the fact that Eskom is an entity which must not be privatized, because the call of the DA now is that we must have private energy so that private energy producers can have their place on the grid. But they don't say that these private energy producers, they equally need the same Eskom routine. So it's European and private people that are going to still come to use the resources of taxpayers. It doesn't matter if you move Eskom from public enterprises to minerals and energy. The elephant in the room is that Eskom has cost-plus contracts which has been lasting. People who were supplying coal for 350 per ton, they are now supplying coal at cost of 1,000 and something. People that have been supplying diesel at, let's say for argument's sake, 2 rand something, are now supplying diesel at 500. So it's those notalities and technicalities. When we speak of corruption, we must also get to the bottom of that corruption, that this white-collar corruption, which is not being spoken of, because you can't have a situation whereby there's export of coal and there's no demand of coal in Europe. And there can never be a corruptee without a corrupt. So where we are now, we're not at a point where we point fingers. We both want the government and the people that are ripping South Africa of their resources to own up to the situation. Because the coal that gets exported here does not go to the air. It goes to certain hands. And
okay, we're going to unfortunately leave it there. We've run out of time, but all I can say to you is, good luck on this quest of yours. I hope that you are able to get your voices heard. And I do hope and pray that people do join you in the absolute masses. Just very quickly tell us what time and where you're meeting, and also tell us about the national rollout.
So it's starting at 10 o'clock. We're starting gathering around 10 today in Woodmead. So the meeting point is at Woodmead in front of News Cafe. I think some kids are starting to gather already there. We're going to have a occupation. It's going to be a week-long protest. So everyone is welcome. It's an unfunded, why young people who are virtually unemployed graduates, some of us, others are unemployed young people who can't do any form of job or in business, but can't because there's no electricity. So everyone is welcome. The build-up is for a national shutdown program, which is going to be announced very soon. Also, we're not approaching it in one go. We're also having the legal route, because we feel like there's also a legal case to make for the lives that have been destroyed by load shedding. So we're also looking at progressive legal people to take on the matter, so that we explore all opportunities, so that it's not only limited to just protest and occupation.
Okay. I have to leave it there. Unfortunately, I have to leave it there. But can I make a suggestion, please? Try and hook up with OUTA. Try and hook up with OUTA, the Benchmarks Foundation, and other such organizations to give you guys weight, and to start, instead of reinventing the wheel, you start speaking in a collective voice. And that way, I think voices will be heard. So please think about that. Good luck for today. And undoubtedly, we will be talking again very, very soon. All the very best. And I do admire your spirit regarding this issue. Mr. Goba, go well. Thank you for being with us on the show this morning.
Thank you, ma'am.
8:53, standing by to talk to us is Dr. Randall. And I'm really pleased that I'm going to be talking to him, because in all of this darkness, at least someone's going to talk to us about a good news story. So do stand by.